Adventurer Richard Bowles joins us now. Richard, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Where did this
good morning.
extreme life experiment come from? Where did it begin?
Well, it started back in 2012. I decided that I was going to run the length of the Great Dividing Range, which is 5,500 kilometres, starting in Hillsville down in Victoria, and finishes up in Cooktown, far north Queensland. And it's basically a 5-month journey where a whole bunch of crazy stuff happened to me, like crossing a crocodile-infested river, having a shotgun stuffed in my mouth by a crazy farmer. And I was always asked why I'd go and do such an adventure. So I didn't really know the answer to that. So I used to make stuff up. But then I took 12 months out of my life and I sat down with a whole bunch of psychological experts to really try and establish that question. Quickly, what I found out was that there's really no answer to that. Sometimes it's just because. But that whole experience with the psychologist was probably a far more, I guess, terrifying experience than ever facing my own mortality on these adventures. Just a tremendous deep insight into myself. And that's really, I guess, the key now to helping people move through uncertainty, change, and that kind of thing.
Wow. So do you think you were kind of running from yourself?
Oh, look, perhaps, who knows? No, I'm actually running into myself, I think. You know, I've learned so much about myself and how I respond to change, challenge and crises and inside the chaos, which is the modern world for most people right now. So this deep insight is not only give me this insight into myself, but also now I'm exploring other people's insight, you know, the crossroads where people need to make a decision to either advance into something that's uncertain or scary or perhaps daunting, or if they're going to take a step back and move away from that. You know, and that's really the insight I'm really trying to establish.
Well, Richard, some of these environments on Earth that you've been through, these extreme experiences, do you think you might have bitten off more than you can chew some of those times?
Always, always. And that's kind of the point. The thing is, I look for adventures that I know are going to be taxing and challenging and going to stretch me. But the whole idea is that I want unpredictable events to happen, because otherwise I can prepare in advance for an adventure. And I know how to prepare for something that's kind of crazy, I guess. So the idea here is that I want things to happen that I can't predict. I can't predict a farmer sticking a shotgun in my mouth and telling me it's going to blow my bloody brains out. I can't predict that. But as I said, that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. That's where I draw the lessons from.
Wow.
How do you survive an erupting volcano or a river infested with crocodiles?
Yeah, well, again, it's about knowing how you respond to those things. Like for crossing a crocodile-infested river, for example, it's obviously pretty terrifying and fearful. So it's really understanding how you, I guess, respond to fear. So the idea is to be able to manage the external chaos. First of all, you need internal order. So it's always about ourselves. It's always trying to understand ourselves. I think if we stand any, I guess, chance of leading ourselves, leading our teams or our families, or really navigating the future well, then it really pays to know how you respond to it.
A lot of people are learning a lot about themselves in isolation during the pandemic. What do you think people should be asking themselves and learning from this whole COVID-19 experience?
Well, you said it there, learning, right? This is a great opportunity to learn about yourself. And really, how have you managed this process through this COVID so far? I mean, what has been the challenges? What have been the sticking points? What's stopped you from adapting quickly to what's happened? And that's kind of the key here. It's not just adaptation and change. It's doing that quickly and seamlessly. I guess in a world, at least for business, is that in a world that is so sort of high sped and fast moving, you don't have really the privilege to be trying to figure out how you move through change. You really need to be able to adapt very quickly and transition through that. But really, people should be taking stock. How have you responded so far to this pandemic? I mean, what things have stopped you from progressing forward, and really having to work on those things and figuring out a strategy now that's going to help you move forward when these things arise again. And the thing that we do know is that they certainly will.
You recently spent a week mirroring the life of a rickshaw driver in India. You were living off $2 a day. What did you learn from that experience?
Well, first of all, a rickshaw puller or waller is it's basically a guy that pulls a two-seater cart around the cities as a kind of a taxi. And look, coming back to the COVID thing, this is a great lesson, because what I learned there is that they're very strong in community, and they have to be, because they're living in, well, the worst conditions ever. You know, I was sleeping on the streets with the rats. I was eating from the streets. I was having to work 18 hours a day in kind of the chaos that is India. And what the community there taught me is that if you don't band together, then you can actually get sick, and terrible things can happen there on the streets. And it's kind of interesting, I find, that, you know, that people always come together in a crisis, don't they? Like now, for example, people are banding to get together. The bushfires that we unfortunately had at the start of the year, people come together. But what I find interesting is that it always takes chaos for people to come together. So I think the insight here is that we need to build a team around us and really come together as a community as we move forward into the future.
Have you ever been surprised by one of your responses? I mean, you know, physiologically, it's fight, flight or freeze. You know, if you immediately freeze, how do you push yourself through that to be stronger, to be braver?
Yeah, well, it's about understanding. As I said before, it's like you're understanding how you respond to these things in advance. That's really the trick, because like you know how you respond to fear. So if you know how you're going to respond to fear or very fearful situation, then you kind of best to come up with a strategy beforehand that's going to help you not get rid of the fear, because it's never going to go, but gives you the ability to deal with it a lot better. Because the good thing about that is when you understand how you respond to it, is that you can now, rather than get caught up in a fearful situation or anxiety or overwhelm, you're able to rise above the chaos. And that gives you a tremendous amount of clarity for what's going on around you. It also means that you can move straight into solutions mode, because that's really what's going to be needed in those situations, and also be very creative and innovative, which are going to be the two biggest skills that we know of moving forward into the future. So if you can really understand how you respond to all the, I guess, the negative emotions in your life, it really gives you a platform to stand on when those things arise, so you can see over the top of them and think of the next step to take.
So such good tips there, Richard. Are you planning your next adventure?
Always. We're in the most crazy adventure, aren't we? I mean, this is an adventure right now.
Yeah.
If you want complexity, uncertainty, you know, fear, it's happening right now. And look, I'm delving into that, and the issues are right now. But really, what's next in terms of a sort of more of a wild adventure for me is I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to live on a dump, a massive landfill site in the middle of Africa.
Oh, wow.
And sort of work off the land and sleep on the land and eat from the land. So look out for that one.
Best of luck to you. You can check out Richard Bowles' adventures and teachings at richardbowles.com.au. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, ladies.
What a legend.